All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our monthly district advisor update call. This is Max here at NDE with pretty much everyone from the help desk here. First thing, I guess go ahead and put your name and what district you're from into the chat window, just so we have a recording of that.
I'm Glenna Withers from Humboldt-Table Rock Steiner Schools.
Ready. So let me start going down the list here. Fall collection, we are finally done, I believe. Everyone. Thank you to the help desk, especially. There was a lot of tickets, a lot of late requests. Not unexpected, of course, but it took a few weeks to resolve those. We hope it shouldn't take so long next time. Put it that way. And then, yeah, you should have seen that your locked data reports have been changed if you had a late request that we finalized. What's coming up next? Attendance reports. I know people are asking for that. We, need a little time to work on them. So I'd say before the end of this month, we should have the attendance reports back up and running on the advisor validation website. Right now, you can see attendance just in the student lookup, but the attendance data in the student lookup is really just a reflection of whatever you submitted to us versus the actual attendance ADA, ADM reports. Those are the ones that actually have the logic for what goes into our state ADA and ADM calculations, what's used for state aid. We also have some bug fixes that we will be working on for the validation website, timeout problems, other tweaks. Then after that, we will be looking at cohort data and the GCAT tool. So yeah, there's still plenty of changes coming, even though we're quote in the quiet time now, I guess, for the data collection. But we'll still be working here at NDE. Also, the dashboard, like I've said before, we had some fixes coming to that, which hopefully we'll be able to finish by the end of this month. Generally, the fixes going out are related to the bug where you have to log in twice through the portal to get into the dashboard. Attendance rates not showing the correct numbers, and also updating a lot of the demographic fields that count students to make sure those are loading the correct data as well. So hopefully we can tell you that all those were fixed on our next call here. So again, just like I mentioned before, definitely one of our focus points here between the collection windows is looking at attendance and calendar data collection. And we've had some meetings working through some issues with, we've met a couple times with the Power School support group, and we've also talked about it in the Infinite Campus users group as well. One thing I wanted to get the discussion going today And especially this is something I will need to talk to all of the vendors individually about. PowerSchool recommends a change to how we are collecting instructional days in the calendar. And I was wondering if anyone else would have any preferences about this. I see that we got JMC and CIC here on the line, so we can start this discussion now, but definitely I'll talk to you guys again later about this as well. So here's an example of the system as it runs now, according to what the specs in our data elements guide say. So say December 11th is a regular day, December 12th is a surprise half snow day, and December 25th is a holiday. So here's what we ask for now. A regular day, you send us an instructional day with a duration of 1.0. This is what we ask for now with holidays or weather days. If it's a half weather day, the specs say that you send up 2 records. One record that says instructional half day and one record that says weather half day. And we know in our attendance reports when we go to count your days in session, we add up the number from the instructional day, but we skip the one that says weather day. And so since we skip it, basically you can technically not even send that weather day record to us because we're not going to count it. It's just kind of there for being able to keep track of the data from your side. And of course, the holiday is, it's a full day holiday on Christmas, so it's a holiday with a length of 1.0. Or again, you could skip it, just like, I don't expect that anyone sends up records for Saturdays and Sundays to tell us that those are not instructional days. So after our meeting with PowerSchool and Nebraska PowerSchool, here's the recommendation they made, where basically this duration is really just telling us the days in session amount. So a full instructional day is still a 1.0 like normal. A half a weather day, you send up one record that says weather and 0.5, and NDE would not really care whether it says weather or instructional or anything. We just see a 0.5, and we know that on that day you were in session for 0.5 of a day. And then a holiday, full day holiday, then you would send a 0 because you're not in session at that time. So it simplifies things in that you don't have to send 2 records up for a single day. This would be a change to how our specs work though, so it's not something we would just roll out suddenly in the middle of the year without coordinating with everyone first. So I wanted to get the discussion started now. Does anyone have any thoughts on this?
This is Suzanne from Columbus, and I really like the proposed change because, that's how I was assuming it was being done in the first place. So
well, that does match with how PowerSchool was already set up better, but not every vendor's necessarily in that same boat. But I'm not sure if other vendors really had to, bend over backwards to match our current system or not.
I think Glitter from HTRS, I really like the proposed changes better. I think it relies more on what is in PowerSchool versus a person trying to keep track of it and doing 2 instructional, a weather and a holiday. I think it would probably pull more accurately using the proposed change.
All right, gang. JMC said they're fine with the way it works now. Yeah, I'm not sure how EduPoint does this either, Becky. It's not, well, all the vendors have seen the specs, but we haven't really focused down on it and haven't, really verified how well it's working for everyone. I know Infinite Campus, actually, as I mentioned later, Infinite Campus is also in the process of doing some tweaks to how the calendar interface works for them. So some of, for Infinite Campus districts, we can't even quite say how it'll work until after that update comes out. But Sandy, it could happen in the middle of the year, but if it did, it would be something that we coordinate with vendors so that you don't actually have to change any data on your side if we're going to do it in the middle of the year. Greg, under the proposed change, it doesn't even really matter whether you call it instructional 0.5 or weather 0.5. We basically just don't even look at the type that's just there. I guess for districts to keep the data straight. And you're correct. Any record that has 0 instructional time on it could be skipped as well. So technically, you would not actually have to send up a holiday record. All right. Well, yeah, obviously it's not something we can make a decision about today, but I just wanted to throw that out there and have people start discussing. All right, good to hear, Greg. So yeah, for those of you who represent some of the vendors, we'll probably talk about this again in later meetings, or I'll send out an email. Let's move on. Again, course section enrollments, same thing I said last month. The course section reports are already available out on the validation site. And so I would encourage districts to start looking at the sections now and seeing, are there kids enrolled in the sections correctly? Are all of the sections being sent up that you expected were going to be sent up? We know that you aren't necessarily sending up like all of your elementary courses necessarily, elementary math or elementary social studies or whatever, or reading or spelling. If you actually have those courses in your SIS, those wouldn't generally send up. But we're looking for that 180000 course for all your elementary students. Are you struggling with any other, high school, middle school students getting those courses? So I would encourage you to look at it now. It's data. It's not due until the end of the year, of course. But once that section data is in place, the section data needs to be in place before you can start sending the grade data. So I'm hoping that we can, focus on this first, and then we'll start talking about grade data later. Vendor updates, nothing major really to talk about, other than I know we had discussed at the last Infinite Campus user group meeting that they're working on several fixes, including a lot of changes to the interface for the calendar. I'm not sure if we know what that looks like yet. Michelle or John, do you have anything to add about that? And you may need to unmute yourself if you want to say something.
Max, I think it's something that the campus is still working on, Ron. And so it's still kind of a work in progress. So I don't think we have a lot of detail to share.
Okay. Also, I think on the Power School side, I don't think there were any updates in November, so that's nice. It's been a while, but there's probably going to be there might be a state reporting update scheduled for the end of December. You know, the Power School Support Group will focus on that more as we get towards the end of the month here. Another vendor I wanted to mention, Certica TestWiz. They have now started testing with several districts. I assume the districts they're testing with are aware of this. And what they are testing is getting the class roster data, aka the student section association data, directly out of Advisor and into their system. They said that they would not shut down any of the old ways to collect that roster data as well, such as there was data uploads and manual entries, from what I understand in TestWiz. But they're testing out this automated system now. I think at least like 6 districts so far. So I don't know when that'll go wide yet exactly, but I will keep you updated on that. Greg at JMC was saying that they are working on some new training videos for Advisor. That would be very cool. Tentatively planned for February 2019. That's great. We'll here at NDE watch those as well. That's all I had planned for the agenda. Our next meeting would be January 9th. Hopefully everyone's back from vacation by then. I'm not exactly sure. Anything else anyone wants to add or questions they want to talk about? Go ahead and unmute yourself and speak up or put something in the chat. State testing. Yeah, we do pull, we are going to pull student enrollment data, I believe. And I think that's posted in the calendar about the dates, basically the second week of January for NSCAS and ACT testing, I think.
Yeah.
Jill, correct me if I'm wrong.
ACT is towards the later part of that, fortunately, because we are still working on cohort, and we'll try to get that updated as soon as possible to make sure that updates to the cohort are reflected. That's more important for kids who've just moved in this year who haven't been assigned a cohort yet. Trying to make sure we have all the kids in the cohort for your testing labels. Otherwise, except for high school, you should be able to review all of those now.
This is Glenn Withers from HTRS, and my testing coordinator received an email that told us how to go in and check and see who was on our testing list. I have some new students that aren't on there, and I don't know how to enter them. Is that going to be coming later, or?
Are these high school students or elementary?
Elementary.
It's based upon the enrollment information. So if they're not showing up on the labels, that's live data. Supposedly, as soon as the data gets into the ODS, your labels should update. So if they're not in there, you need to start looking at their information in Advisor to see why they're not showing up on your label.
So Glenna, just open up a ticket with Nebraska Power School and we'll take a look at that.
Okay, thank you.
Wasn't there a change made on Friday because there were some students missing?
So Janice tweaked the
Yeah.
the report.
A little
but-
bit.
Yeah.
Of the assessment labels report.
Yeah.
Glenna, when did you look at your report last?
This
Glenna?
morning, I looked at that report this morning.
Okay.
Have you looked at the student lookup ID to see if that student is correctly in the ODS?
Well, I can check that again, but I thought I did. But I can check that again.
You can send the help desk a ticket too, and we'll help you.
Okay, that'll be great.
Glenna, just send one
Or,
to
yeah.
Nebraska Power School and we'll get you figured out.
All right, will
Yeah.
do.
Probably, we just need to check, that the student is being published from Power School.
We are
with,
just seeing some issues with newer students not publishing right away or not publishing completely. So that is something, it's kind of hit and miss that we'll take up with Power School tomorrow.
Okay. Thanks, Amy. Melissa, there is a assessment label, I believe, is the
Okay.
name of the report. It is in advisor validation.
Okay,
I think
that's what I
under the,
wondered, if they're just looking at their rosters or if they were looking at a specific.
Right. There's a group called assessment. And then when you open up that report, you pick which assessment. There's some drop downs.
Oh, label, the only one that's there is label rosters for all statewide assessments, so that's the one they need.
That's the report.
Okay, thank you.
Greg, good question. What is the latest about our upgrade to EdFi next year? We were just planning on putting some official communication together for the vendors about that in the next few weeks, but briefly, we hope to have a basic EdFi core sandbox ready for vendors very soon after the 3.1 version of data standard. The 3.1 data standard is released. EdFi's kind of been delaying when they are releasing that, so it may not be out until January or something.
Right now, EdFi's latest date on releasing the 3.1 standard is the end of this calendar year, which is pushing us off on when we can get it a sandbox based upon that out. But the plan right now is to get a sandbox based on the 3.1 out in January, and then have an update to it, hopefully by the end of February, that would have any and all changes that would be needed for the 1920 school year. We wanted to get one out a little bit earlier so that vendors could begin doing the work that they need to do based upon the change in the data standard. And then a later version would allow you to then program the changes for new or changed data elements that we're collecting.
Yeah, that Nebraska specific stuff.
Yes.
So yeah, we'll make that official sometime soon here.
We're being held up because of EdFi right now.
But generally, we still are on track with a plan to switch to the new data standard for next school year. Yeah, Anna, roughly end of February, I guess. It kind of just depends on when we can get going with the latest, the 3.1 version of the data standard. And once the new data standard's out, then that's when we can start putting out the API and the sandbox. Let's see here. Instructions for the label rosters that Tina put out here. Did you make these, Tina, or did those come from us? Okay.
Yeah, nope, I can't take credit for those.
You should probably, we can put a copy of this on the on one of our documentation sites as well.
I might want to give it a once over one more time before.
Yeah, it shows stuff.
I thought so too.
But yeah, go ahead. Anyone else wants to see this for now? Click that link in the chat window. It's a good question, Greg. Will we need to support the old version? Generally, year to year, I think it's easier for vendors if we maintain older years ODSs in the current year format. And especially that makes it easier for us. We just run one API for the current year, and I basically bring the data over into the current year format for any of those small changes that happen year to year. It's kind of a question I don't know that we've answered for sure yet for when we're doing this major API switchover. If we did want to just leave the 1819 API as is, we would basically have two APIs running with two different URLs, one just for 1819 and one for 1920 and the new versions going forward. I'm not sure which one's necessarily easier or better idea for the vendors. In theory, we should be able to convert any of the existing 1819 data into the new format. It's just, I'm not sure how complex that would be to do, but I think it could be done. So I'd say we're still talking about that, Greg. And yeah, we'll seek out some opinions from all the vendors on that. For the districts on the call, just so you know, basically next year you will still be, once we're into the 1920 school year, you would still be able to submit data to the 1819 school year, just like we have that follow-up collection under NSSRS where you're going back and changing all data. Basically, we'll give you an opportunity. Well, the database never closes. You can always go make changes to 1819, but we'll open up a window just like the fall collection where we'll let you make official state data changes to your 1819 data next fall, as that's how the new follow-up collection would work. So in theory, you should just be able to go back to your previous year in your SIS and just make the changes and publish it there, just like you're doing right now. Alrighty. No other questions? Alrighty. Thanks for joining, everyone. And like I said, the next meeting is January 9th. Yes. Good.
Thank you,
Happy
guys.
holidays. Hopefully you enjoy some time off.
Amy?